Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. It's Q&A Tuesday, shot on Wednesday. Sorry, there's a lot of moving parts going on right now. So with that in mind, it's been messing with my schedule a little bit, and I'm gonna get back on track because I don't like not filming every day like I normally do. This is part of my day. This has literally become a part of my day. I like coming on here. I like talking to you guys. I can't wait to film my episode because I think this is what I'm going to talk about today. And I spend part of my day thinking about, like, what am I going to film next and what am I going to talk about next? So that's what I do. And anyway, so sorry about that, guys, but I'm back. And I thought I would start off today's episode with a little bit of information. So I was reading an article about all the new codes that are coming out for fiscal year 2020. So according to AHIMA, there are 72,184 ICD-10 CM codes for fiscal year 2020 versus the 71,932 that were for fiscal year 2019. So this in mind, the statistics are these, right? 273 of these 273 new codes were added, okay? 21 were deleted and 30 were revised. So lots of new things coming for 2020. Now is the best time to start looking at those articles. There's plenty of articles out about the changes that are coming for 2020. So be sure to look at those, brush up on those things. So this way you can be aware of what is new. If you're doing part of the education for your providers, you can be able to share this information as well because there is an exciting set of new codes I'm very excited about. So be sure to share those, share that information with your providers. So this way you can all be current. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the questions. All right. So a viewer asked, pre-employment exams, is there any preparing for these? No. Yes and no. So the no part of it is you don't really know what the employer is going to ask. So basically you are at their mercy. They can throw anything at you that they want. It is not unusual to have a 50-question test when you are applying for a job. Now, don't get scared, okay? That's just an example. They're not all 50, you know what I mean? So, basically what they give you is like different case studies, different cases for you to code. These are just sort of a barometer of like what you know. This can tell them, hey, this person can look at a record, they can abstract diagnoses, they can abstract procedures, they can tell us what's going on with this patient through code. So essentially you're just basically looking at these records and coding them if you were to code them, right? If you were an employee working at a facility, how would you code this? So you basically would look and, you write out, the codes, the procedures, or if they have evaluation and management, then you would code those kinds of things. So there's really no way to prepare. It's just basically a random thing of whatever they want to give you a test on. Yes, you can use your book. I've never known a place to not allow the coders to use books because nobody expects us to memorize all of these codes. But sometimes the potential employer will let you have access to like an encoder or something, if they have it all online. Most don't, although I have heard of that. I don't think most facilities do that. They just sort of want to see what the coder is made of with the book. So it's always good to stay on point with the book. When you are working with the book, it's just going to make it a lot easier. When you get into the facility, of course, it'll be a lot better and easier for you if you have the encoder. So something to keep in mind. It's always recommended. I've always recommended staying on top of your speed. If you have speed right now with the book, keep that speed up. And that is a one thing I kick myself for not staying on top of, is that speed with the book. So this is the reason this is the reason that whenever I prepare for Quiz Friday, I always go through the book myself. Rather than, try to go through an encoder. I don't do that. I always go through the book because I want to make sure that I can still get that speed, because these are things that these questions for Quiz Friday, I come up with off the top of my head. These are things that I try to think of, like what scenario would best describe this, or if they're looking for detail, if I was a provider and I was documenting all this detail, what would I want a coder to know? This is the questions that I ask myself in order to be able to try to put myself in the provider's shoes and in the coder's shoes and the outsider's shoes, the patient, I try to think of those things, and that helps me to be able to formulate these questions. Sometimes, even when I formulate the questions a couple times, I've gotten the answer wrong, so oh well. But it's good, because if I get caught like going through these things and oh, I selected the wrong one and somebody picks it up, it's like, well, wait a minute, what about this, what about this answer? That's good, because then it's just like, okay, good is even more sharper detail, so always good. So but yeah, that was my opinion on that one. Okay, I answered that one. Where to find out more info to start in medical coding. So if you are interested in medical coding, there are two major associations. There's the American Health Information Management Association, or AHIMA, and there's the American Academy of Professional Coders, or AAPC. So both websites, and I will be putting their addresses down in the description box below, they have so much information about their association and the credentials that they offer, because each association offers different credentials and different designations, so that way that you can whatever field of study, that's the credential you're looking for, the credential that you're wanting to get. You can look on the website and find out all the statistics about that particular credential. I am with the American Health Information Management Association. That is where I started my career. This is where I'm going to continue with my career, because I love my association, okay? I don't know anything about AAPC, so I really can't speak on them. What I can speak on is the American Health Information Management Association. It is a wonderful organization, and I have learned so much from them. I have met so many people, and the camaraderie that I get whenever I go to conference and I meet other people who have AHIMA credentials, it is really awesome. In my facility, we are a minority. We are a very small number of people in my facility have an AHIMA credential, and that's okay. To me, it's not a bad thing to stand out. So I do stand out because I have a AHIMA credential. So it's when I go to conference, or when I meet other people with AHIMA credentials, it's really, just the camaraderie alone is really awesome. But both associations have lots of great benefits to being associated with them. Being a certified credentialed medical coder is a wonderful thing, okay? And whatever association you pick, whether you pick AHIMA or AAPC, whatever path you're taking in medical coding is all on you, okay? You are the captain of the ship. This is what I always say. You are the captain of your own ship. You are the master of your own destiny. As cliche as that sounds, right? So you are the master of your own destiny, and whatever association you decide to go through is, whichever path that you feel most comfortable on. For me, in my path, in my career, I feel most comfortable with the American Health Information Management Association. That's just where I feel like my coding home is. And some people have, credentials through both associations for many reasons. Sometimes it's just a benefit of where they are in their facility. Maybe, they have a facility that pays for them to have both. I don't know. There's just a bunch of reasons why. Some people think that it makes them more marketable, and maybe it does for some facilities, they want a certain association credential, or maybe they're looking for, a certain credential, a particular credential in particular. So maybe because that's what they know, they're familiar with the people who have that particular credential. So that way, everybody sort of is the same, and the field is level. So there's just a bunch of different reasons why. Again, it's wherever you feel most comfortable. The caliber of coder, because everybody is different, is going to depend on you, how much you're studying, how much you are trying to learn more, because it is a continual learning process. Even when you get out of school, it is still going to be a continual learning process. So keep that in mind, new coders, future coders. It is a continual learning process. All right, so next question. And I did say that I'm going to leave the addresses down in the description box. I hope I did. But if I didn't, I am. Okay, so next question. Do you have to know how to use Excel, Word, etc., PowerPoint? How important is it? It is very important to know how to use computer programs. You don't have to be like certified, right, with the coding. I mean, not the coding, but the certified with like Word or whatever, Excel. Just know how to use it. Know how to navigate Word, Excel, PowerPoint, things like that. If you don't know how to use PowerPoint yet, that's okay. I didn't know how to use PowerPoint when I started. And I actually didn't learn how to use PowerPoint until a couple of years ago, honestly. I had done a lot of my slides. I had done them just through Word, and I had just done them that way, like a makeshift deck, essentially, is what it was. Until my supervisor was like, no, we need you to start using the PowerPoint slide. I'm like, oh, that's a little bit advanced for me. She's like, oh, it's real easy. So she showed me how to look up, like, how to do little tricks and little fancy things with PowerPoint. So it's a lot of fun once you start getting into it. But yeah, just tinker around with Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. Those are your big ones. And then, of course, Outlook. So Outlook has this thing where they have like an out of office feature. Like if you're going to be gone from your office, and you, like, say you take leave or whatever, you can put an out of office. So as soon as somebody emails you, this message will pop up, hey, this person is gone. And then, you could put in there. For me, I always put the date that I'm going to be gone. And then I say from when to when, and then I will be returning on this date at this time. And I tell them if they have any questions, they can email me, or they can send it to my supervisor, and I'll put her contact information on there, like her email and her phone number, in case they have any sort of immediate concerns. And this is just a courtesy that is really important. There's one of my pet peeves is not knowing if somebody's on leave, you know what I mean? And like needing to contact them. So I like it when providers tell me, hey, Blue, I'm going on leave. Good. Let me know, because this way, if I have a query, I'm not going to send it to an inbox and it's going to be sitting there for like a week or 2 weeks, or sometimes maybe a month. It just depends. I like to email my providers too, to let them know that, hey, I'm going to be gone for like a week or whatever. When I went to conference last year, I did send them an email beforehand. I told them, I am going to be gone from this day to this day. And I told them, if you have any questions or whatever, you can email me, and I will return your email as soon as I return. If it cannot wait, then my supervisor can be reached at this number, and this is her email address. I like for them to be able to just stick with just asking me questions, only because it's not that I get territorial, although I am notorious for getting territorial with them. Sometimes when you're looking at documentation, the way that I look at documentation and I interpret it could be different from somebody else's, and say, for example, my boss is looking at something and she's distracted with something else, or I'm not saying that she is, I'm just saying, okay, or maybe she's just not as familiar with that particular clinic, which again, I'm just saying, she knows a lot, okay? So I'm just saying, but if she wasn't quite as familiar, and a provider asked her a question, maybe she would know, maybe she wouldn't know. So it's just all like, I like for them to just come to me and ask me a question. But if they have a question and it cannot wait, then they can go to my supervisor. That is the hierarchy that I prefer to go in, because I've had situations before with providers that decide to go rogue on me. And they'll go ask a colleague instead of asking me, which is bad, because sometimes, especially if that colleague is in a different facility. Now, if they're in the same facility, that's different. But sometimes different facilities will have different rules. So when they have different rules, that influence can be put on my provider, who I have particularly trained in a particular way, in order to look at things, correctly, right? And so sometimes, I've had a provider that she did that, and it was just like, oh no, we can't do that, because it leads to confusion. And of course, it did lead her to confusion, because she was just like, well, I know you said this, but my friend said this. And I said, okay, well, where is your friend? And she was at a completely different facility, and it was just like not even in the same network. And I'm like, you can't do that. That's not even correct. I don't know where she's getting the, oh yes, but this was from a few years ago, and it had like 2015 on it. I'm like, we're in 2018. These rules, those codes are old. You know what I mean? And so that was where her confusion lied. So again, it is important to make sure that when you are communicating with your providers, that they know that they can contact you, and that you want them to contact you first, and then maybe a secondary person, which in my case is my supervisor. Other than that, I would prefer that they not ask other people, and that they come to me. Or if somebody says, hey, like say for instance, a provider will go to like a conference or something, and they're like, oh yeah, well, this person was speaking. Oh, okay, good. Because usually if you go to a conference, you know what I mean, it's reliable information. But I still also like to see what it is that they're saying, because if those particular rules don't apply to my facility, I need to let the provider know right away before they start making any changes. Again, it's all about communication. So, but yeah, that's what I like to do with Outlook. And like I said, with PowerPoint, I like to give my slides through PowerPoint, now, although a lot of times I don't trust those monitor things. Like, you can email those PowerPoint slides to like an email address, and then when you're presenting, you can sort of have it, on the big screen. I also like to still print out, like manual slides, so that way people can take them with them, when they go, and they can make notes and things like that. So I always think that that's helpful, because sometimes you have to have things like in your hand rather than just up on a screen. So just a little tip from me to you. All right, so next question. And you really should know how to do screenshots as well. In any system that you're working in, it's really good to know how to do a screenshot, because you may need to like take information that you get, or maybe you're working on something and you need to move it into a folder. It's always good to be able to know how to screenshot that screen, and then like put it, say for instance you're working on a paper or something. You can take a screenshot and put it into a folder and things like that. So that way everything stays secure, and there's nothing out there that's just floating around. And it's always good to know how to do those little tricks. So if you know somebody that knows little tricks in the computer like that, like as far as like screenshots and things like that, it's very helpful. All right, so, and then the last question is, how do you get hands-on practice? So, if you're working on a degree, right? A lot of times they'll have externships, and maybe they work with different facilities for, just to do internships or externships rather. if you're working on a degree. If you have a credential and you're trying to get some experience somehow, some way, so maybe you're trying to volunteer, um, keep in mind that these are, if you're going to call somebody in that works as the administrator in a hospital, they're still having to consider the fact that, you're asking to go in a secure area with like medical records and things like that. And these are people's private information. So you may have to go through a background check. That's a possibility that you have to do, because they have to keep these records secure. They can't just have you running around back there looking at, random people's stuff. So, but they do have, some facilities do have internships available, but you have to call. And in the beginning, it is a lot of shaking hands, and it is a lot of, no, you can't get a job here because you don't have any experience. This is why I've always recommended doing what I did, which was going through a temporary agency. I had to do that in the beginning because I was getting that same response all the time of, you don't have any experience, we can't hire you, you need a year to 2 year experience. This is like, how can I get experience if no one will hire me? And so, but going through a temporary agency, it was really good because every assignment that you go on is more filler for your resume. So this way you're getting more exposure to different clinics, and you're able to meet more people. And meeting more people is a good way to get like those job connections as well, because you may not have a lot of experience, but if you are sharp and you know things, and you're very detail oriented, this is going to be really good for you, because people are going to notice that, and particularly people that are doing the hiring are going to notice that. So always make sure you stay on top of your game. And I know that it gets frustrating because, especially when you're starting out, you're like, when am I going to be able to get a job and do all these things? Well, again, it just takes time, but just if you stick with it, you'll be able to get it. So don't give up. Whatever you do, that is my biggest bit of advice too, is to not give up. I get messages from people who say, well, I couldn't get a job, so I just stopped. And it's heartbreaking to hear that, because I know how hard it is to get a credential. It is very hard. I was very fortunate that I passed the first time I took my certification exam. And to pass the first time is really hard, but you just have to really study. And if you don't pass your certification exam, it's all right. Just take it again and just keep going until you get it. Because when you finally do get into this field, and you finally settle into a good job, and you start, getting into the hang of things, and really spreading your wings when it comes to coding, which is where I feel like I am now, because I get to share all of my experiences with all of you guys, and I get to come in and talk to you guys, and tell you about all the things that happen, and these nerdy moments that I have where I'm like, so excited about something, and it's usually something like really small, or made seem like it's small, but it's huge. Like my provider that was going rogue, I mentioned him a couple of videos back. He had been going rogue, and I finally told him, okay, I can't keep holding your hand, whatever you got is what you're gonna get. So he finally was like, okay, and it had to sort of wake him up to be like, okay, now I really need to make sure that I'm paying attention to detail, and I need to make sure that I'm documenting correctly and things like that. So now to see his documentation has improved leaps and bounds is so wonderful, and I'm so proud of him. I'm so happy, and I'm like, yes, I knew you had it in you. I didn't tell him this, but I told him thank you for, just making sure that you're documenting, everything that you need to in order to get full credit, and to make sure that your notes are compliant. That was what made my day. And sharing all of that with you guys is really nice, I enjoy it. So And another thing I like about medical coding too is that, like, where I work, I don't have to have like direct supervisor supervision. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to have a supervisor right behind me watching everything I do. Although, like I've said, I think my boss would prefer some of the things that I not do. But when you have creative, creative just freedom, it does make things a lot better. Because I think because I have that, and because I'm allowed to be able to be, a little bit more free to do things in a creative way. It does help. It helps my providers to learn. It helps my providers to do better. You know what I mean? And that's what I like, and that's what makes it rewarding. That's my reward, I feel like. So, anyway, that was my nerd moment of the day. So, but yeah, that's it for Q&A Tuesday today. Shauna Wednesday. Shh, don't yell. Sorry. Anyway, I will be back for another episode in a little bit. If you have any more questions for Q&A Tuesday, I will be shooting one more Q&A Tuesday before I go on leave. Well, no, because I'll be back for Q&A Tuesday again. So never mind that one. Scratch that idea. But if you have any questions for next week's Q&A Tuesday, be sure to email me, comment below, or just let me know. And I will get that into the next episode. All right. So if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. I will see y'all on the next video. Bye!